If all I have are sound effects.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
There's no answer to that question. What's up, Pally?
Dirt.
Oh, just right off the bat. Like, just jump right into it. Like, first word. You can't beat that.
There we
First
go.
word. Dirt.
I wasn't even going to try and find an opportunity to dive in or to like bring up the title. I was just right. I cheated.
Yeah, it works.
It was a tough one. I've been thinking about it all week.
Oh, were you really? So you're into this now. I had this little plan of like, how am I gonna?
Well, it's not really. Well, kind of. I mean, at this point, you're anticipating it, right? So, I mean, it's just about when. Although, I guess I could have started with saying, like, you know, it's been a bit busy. Tuesdays, we're recording Tuesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are busy. Hendrix plays baseball now, so I'm taking him out to baseball. I'm teaching him baseball. I've become his John Gibbons, you know. So it's been. So I could have started with that and said he plays in a baseball diamond full of dirt. So I guess I could have gotten there, but I'm
glad you didn't do that.
Yeah. There you go.
How did he not die of heat stroke tonight? It's like
I know,
so
right?
hot.
It was hot tonight.
You can see my glasses are like, I don't know, and I'm in like a basement. Like, I don't know, it's like super hot.
Steven, you wearing a long sleeve, man. You were in the classic Jensen long sleeve that you'll be able to buy on our website very soon.
That's right.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was hot. The kids were pretty hot. His attention wasn't entirely there tonight. It's tough keeping him focused. And I bet the heat had something to do with that. It was a hot day.
Probably.
I was out there getting farmer's tans, you know?
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Hey, what? Jeez, it's
What
a
was
loud
that?
car. Oh, did you hear that?
Hell's Angels?
Yeah, seriously.
I did
The
hear
neighborhood's going to hell. There's a dog around here that is it's like off leash.
Yeah.
And it sent somebody to the hospital.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
You should see that.
Seriously? Really?
Bit him. Yeah. There's like a community group, like chat, and it's been blowing up lately because this dog was seen off leash because last year this dog attacked somebody, gashed a guy's leg open. He had to go to the hospital and get stitches. No. So everybody's like, watch out for the dog.
See, I grew up in a small town when I was a kid, and you just reminded me of something. I was always told about this mythical being if you walked your dog off leash, which you would never do. But that being was called the dog catcher.
Oh, that poor little puppy's going to the dog pound.
And you never
won't
see your
it
dog again.
No.
It's like a way to scare
seen it.
kids, right? Make sure you never take the dog off the leash if you walk it, because the dog catcher will take your dog and you'll never see it again.
You know, the best time for the dog catcher to catch the dog is when the dog is digging in a pile of dirt. Still did it. Still brought it back.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Here we
That's
go.
it.
We'll see you next
There you
week. Oh.
All right, dirt.
Yeah, dirt.
Tell me about dirt. What did you think of dirt?
Dirt was, you know what I like? You know what I like about grunge music? You
What?
know, people are going to be like, oh, it's not really grunge or whatever. Screw off. I like how different it sounds across all albums, all bands, but it's still grunge,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Like it sounds different from Nirvana. It sounds different from what do we listen to before this? Oh my God, my brain. Pearl Jam, right?
Yep.
But it still is like it's in that vein, right? And that's what I like. You know, listen to 80s music. It's kind of like don't kill me. I don't want to say it all sounds the same, but like when you listen to those bands, and I want to listen to the Poisons, right? We did this with the Cinderellas and the Motley Crues, and it's all rock and roll, but it's all a little like too familiar. It's all too similar. Sorry, in sound. But what I've liked between these three albums is how different they've sounded, but still carry the grunge feel.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I agree with you, and I was thinking about this today. If that is the case, what is the unifying thread?
Heroin. No.
Well,
okay.
It's connected to heroin. But I think it's
the singer. Yeah, I don't know. No.
I think it's the dark lyrical,
right?
Subject matter, right?
Yeah, totally. You're totally right. But yes, yep.
Because if you think about Nirvana, it's guitar rock. It's Pixies. There's a little bit of REM in there. We talked about that. Pearl Jam is very much classic rock. You hear Hendrix, you hear Zeppelin in there. The album we're about to talk about now is you can be easily mistaken for metal. It truly can. And yet they're all grunge albums. But I think it has to do with that dark kind of malevolence that's underneath that comes out in the lyrics.
Whether you listen to the lyrics either, though, I think it's kind of interesting. I just feel like there's just this dark undertone of it, right? Like that it just feels like, I think overall, like for me, that's what it felt like. It felt like there was just this darkness, anyways, between all these albums that did make that feeling that brought it all together.
So the darkness is could be a couple things. It's the production, maybe. I don't know if it is or not. The imagery, maybe. But otherwise, I mean, I agree with you, but it's hard to put your finger on it. I think it's the lyrical content.
And just vocals. Like, I feel like the lead singers really drive that feeling here as well. I think there's a real distinction that push that darkness as well, right? There's in the way that they move their voice with the music. Cobain obviously did that. Vedder's incredible with it, and now Staley is also very just. There's a lot of, and maybe that's it. The pain, darkness, in emotion in their singing as well.
This, we're going to do two more of these. I won't say who they are until the end, but
okay.
This is our third one, and they're all grunge records. But of the 5 that we will eventually do, the anguish and the sickening pain that is on display on this record is beyond compare.
Okay.
The other 4.
Yeah.
And, the reason why I picked this one, Dirt, because I could have picked Facelift. I could have picked Jar of Flies. I think this is kind of the truest representation of Alice in Chains artistry in terms of that anguish and that pain that they're feeling. And we're going to go through all this later, but it's the truest representation. It's a bold, artistic gesture on their part. Facelift is a little bit too, but this is like this record that's the genius and that's the core behind this album, and that's why I picked this one. But of all the grunge, like this is the truest representation of like grunge.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Did you pick up on that?
Hard for me to say I would recognize this as it's the truest representation, but aside from the title being Dirt and the band being named Alice in Chains, it just feels grungy. It does feel really true to the genre, to its label.
Well, this band, I've said this a couple of times, I think, on the show and elsewhere. They used to be called Diamond Lie. Like they were kind of they're from Seattle, but they used to listen to bands like Queensryche, and you can hear Jerry Cantrell, the guitar player. Like he's he's a blues guy, but he's a metal guy. And you can hear that. And they were kind of a glam metal band when they were trying to, discover what their sound was. And so, in the late 80s, they were right in there with the other bands. Yeah. Until they kind of, discovered what their sound was. And then, they slid into addiction, to Layne Staley, the singer, obviously heroin addiction. The rhythm section, Mike Starr, the bass player, and Sean Kinney, the drummer, were alcoholics, self-confessed, and they had a lot of problems. So when this album was being made, like what's his name, Dave Jordan produced this, and his quote after was like, Layne Staley hated me because I told him to like straighten out. He said, I'm getting paid to produce a record, not to be your friend. That's what he said to him. Yeah. So this whole thing was just a mess. And if you know the story behind Layne Staley and how he died, he basically he killed himself. He said in an interview, first you do the drugs, then the drugs do you. And that was maybe, 6 months before he died. And they found him on a couch 2 weeks after he passed away. Imagine that.
Whoa.
His mom found him in his apartment.
Jeez.
Oh, awful. Awful, awful.
What was, I can't remember if it was him or Cantrell that said it's easier to die and much harder to live.
Cantrell said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much harder to, and again, like Eddie Vedder said that too, right? He said it's, you can commit suicide and kill yourself, but it's harder to live and prosper and be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest irony is that when you think about people like Gene Simmons, who's like the perennial rock star, they say, well, grunge is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. You're a millionaire, you're a rock star, you're an icon, people love you, and you're sad. That doesn't make any sense to me, he said. But I think that's kind of the juxtaposition, right? What? Is that you think about points like that, but the reason why they are here, and the reason at the very core of this movement is this anguish, and that's what gave rise to this entire thing. That's why all this is very interesting to follow.
That's so ridiculous. Sorry, Gene, but money and fame, it does not equal happiness. Right. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. What an idiot.
So before we go through the songs, the last thing I'll say about this record is that a lot of people don't know. It's obviously, back then it was split into side one, side two. But side two, apparently, all the songs were arranged in terms of like sequencing to tell the story. And they start with Junkhead, which we'll go through. And then they end with, I think, Angry Chair. And it starts with, and Staley backed this up. He said, there's kind of two themes to this record. The first theme is, if you're feeling this anguish and kind of loathing and all these problems you're feeling, drugs seem like the answer. And when you start taking the drugs, it is the answer until you figure out that it's not the answer, and then it's too late. So that was kind of the theme. And then he said the second theme was just painful relationships that you have with people. And if you go through some of these songs, they talk about these painful relationships that they've had with women and each other and so forth. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do it then.
Them Bones.
Played this on Guitar Hero. They really loved the grunge. They really loved the grunge music in Guitar Hero, I'm realizing. Big fans of this. About a Girl, Nirvana, Even Flow, Pearl Jam, Them Bones, Alice in Chains. Yeah.
Terrible.
Completely diminishing my my feedback. Cool kickoff tune though. Cool kickoff. Enjoyed it. I've kind of been like, I'm into grunge now. I really felt this like, it's cool. It's a good introduction to Staley's voice, and I dug the tune. I dug it.
He really was a special singer, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I
totally.
I mean, it wasn't like he was some kind of operatic, technical, gifted singer, but like he was such an impassioned kind of conveyor of his feelings, and his voice sounded so cool. The way that he would deliver lines, just amazing.
Yeah, even just his little like screeches throughout this is just, yeah, again, like you said, impassioned and really it lends something extra. It's really just emotional to the song as well. Yeah, good tune. Really good tune.
These guys, especially Cantrell, said, this isn't like a glorification of drug, addiction. This was like almost a warning. So he said there are positives. We always were optimists, which is kind of hard to believe when you listen to this record, in my opinion. But he said there's always like a silver lining, and Them Bones was the silver lining. And I guess people said, like, how is that? Because it's like, I feel so alone, gonna end up a big old pile of them bones. But he said, well, the message is we're all mortal. We're all going to die. So in the time that we have, let's have fun. And the interviewer pressed him a little further. And he said, yeah, death just freaks me out. Like I just, I'm focused on, like, I'm afraid of death, and it scares me. So I really want to have fun in my life. And that's what this song is about. I never picked up on that.
No.
Right?
Didn't get it. I guess if you want to look at it as like, this is just a warning to myself. Don't end up like that. I don't know. Like maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
Very
get
strange.
it. The guitar sounds great on this album too. I was reading a little bit about that, and the recording process for the guitars sounds pretty cool.
What did they do for that? Didn't Jordan do something?
He recorded 3 different frequencies of guitars.
Yeah.
Low, mid, and high, really, and just blended them together. But like, it just sounds awesome.
Through 3 amps, I think, right?
3 different amps and an amp head, and yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they say that this is like the tone of grunge. I guess I don't know a lot about it, but I did hear something where he he made this tone famous because he used a bunch of different amps and kind of, I don't know, connected them in a certain way.
Oh, that's interesting, man. It sounds great. I still love the production of Nevermind. I kind of pin this every album now up against that one, and I really feel like that one sounds like to me is really like what grunge is too. I'm not saying this isn't, but to me it's like Nevermind is a really great. I don't know. You could say that one was too, in my opinion. But obviously,
it's big. It does sound good. I agree with you. I think that's a great sounding record. Yeah.
Yeah. I've said it a couple times too, but it just bring it back. Damn That River is a killer second song too.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what the song's about?
Blocking a river.
It's a metaphor for like controlling your anger.
Oh, okay, cool.
So apparently, the drummer Sean Kinney and Cantrell fought, and I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently Sean Kinney broke a coffee table over Cantrell's head.
Oh, right, I read about this. Yeah, that's right.
So
that's wild.
So maybe it is true. Prompting him to write this song.
Broke a coffee table over his head.
That's not just that's not a little shoving match. That's
no.
That's like a barroom brawl.
I mean, knowing the state of like living conditions some grunge people lived in, some grunge bands lived in, it could have just been a table like of plywood on, so it might not have been a really serious coffee table, but nonetheless, killer riff. Cool tune.
It is. Oh, it's a great song. Yeah. Love that guitar sound.
Yeah. And then Rain When I Die is actually this is might be my favorite song on the album, Rain When I Die.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just a great melody. I love, like, this was interesting to me because I wasn't expecting a great like vocal melody. like this, like, there's the grunge melody, right? There's it's you think about Damn That River and Them Bones and Wood, like all these things. They're not really like pretty melodies, but they do that here, and that's really what I like about it.
I love that you picked up on that. I've always thought that Alice in Chains does that as a band. If you think about, and I love that you do this, you'll go, back and forward with subsequent and previous releases. And I hope that you do that here, because they have songs like No Excuses, I Stay Away, and the melodies are beautiful. Interesting.
All right, cool.
Man, like of all the grunge bands, Alice in Chains wrote the best melodies.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll do that
opinion.
Then.
People might not agree. But when you said that, I completely agree with you. And go and listen to all those other songs.
Cool. Yeah. All right, I will. Yeah, really, really, really enjoyed it. They stick to the kind of grunge formula for the majority of it. When you get to that chorus, it's just, oh man, it was really kind of euphoric almost, which is weird to use in grunge music.
Yeah, well, again, there's a song I Stay Away. And it's got this kind of ascending, and it is optimistic. It's funny because it's not a grunge tune really at all. You wouldn't expect it. But again, there's that anguish in it that kind of grounds it and kind of, that's the thread again.
Cool.
There's another cool thing about this song. So there, right around, I think the 50-second mark in the late 40s, you hear a noise. And then you hear it again at about 55 seconds. So did you hear this at all?
No, I did not listen closely to this. No.
So what it is, remember Running with the Devil, Van Halen? So doom, doom, doom. And right before the drums kick in, you hear a noise. It's Eddie dragging. That's right. Dragging his pick across the strings behind the nut of the guitar on the headstock. So they go clink, like almost like a weird kind of bizarre piano thing, right?
Yeah.
They do the same thing here. Cantrell does it.
It wasn't like you had to go listen to a $100,000 speaker system?
No.
It's pretty obvious.
Hear an acoustic guitar in the background.
No.
Deep in the mix.
Down in a hole.
Love this song.
Yeah.
See the melody again. When you hear the beginning of it, that acoustic guitar is just like, it's just a beautiful song,
Yeah.
And
that was probably the most enjoyable part of like listening to this album, is kind of discovering those elements of them. Because I had known Them Bones, and kind of when I hear Alice in Chains, it's always, like I said, it's like kind of grunge. And then now you kind of get into it, and you're like, even when they thought about Nirvana, and like you're thinking about songs like Polly or one of their last songs, the really slow one. Of course, I can't remember it right now, but you just don't expect that. Like, I never expected that. It was great to hear that. I knew Pearl Jam kind of did that, having known a few of their other songs outside of that, but it was just cool to discover the bands like this actually kind of stretching their musical chops and making music like this.
That's exactly what I love about this band. It's not just complaining, it's not just whining. It's artistry. And the chorus, the kind of outro of the chorus, that great melody, do 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 do, right? Like that's good songwriting. It's not just flat, it's not just, it's a really, really nice melody. Yeah, Alice in Chains and Cantrell just had a gift for that.
Do you know much about like the writing process of this? I didn't really get deep into that, but just what they went through to like create these songs. Were these songs like, think about Van Halen and how some of those songs have been written 15 years before they were recorded, or I don't know. Do you know much about this?
What I do know is that Cantrell was behind most of the songs.
Okay.
And that it wasn't like he just wrote a bunch of them. Like, I think he wrote them currently.
Okay.
They wrote this record on the road, touring Facelift. And that's why it's so intense, is because they were going through, the throes of addiction. Staley had checked into a rehab center, checked out, and jumped right back into heroin. Like I said, the two rhythm section guys were full-blown alcoholics, and it was just a mess. I think Cantrell was the guy who kind of kept the train on the tracks, really.
And Down in a Hole, was it this one written, or was it Dirt written about a girl? Down in a Hole written about a girl? I know there's some of these, both of them, yeah.
This was Cantrell. Cantrell wrote the song, and it was about his girlfriend. I can't remember her name, but it was a long-term girlfriend, and he said this song...
Cheryl Cole, something like that? No? Sorry, I shouldn't have derailed your thought, but that's what came to mind for me.
No, he said, it's funny how apt this song turned out to be, because he answered this question, I think, like 20 years after this was released. And he said, it's about a long-term relationship that I've had with my girlfriend. But at the same time, it predicted where I'm at now very cogently. And it tells us how inadequate we are at, dealing with long-term relationships. How ill-equipped we are to kind of, do well in long-term relationships.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that. I was like, should I get into that with Brent? Should Brent and I talk about how well we're doing with our long-term relationships and see if see if they were correct in this thinking? So I'll go first. So anyways, that's how I feel about long-term relationships. But anyways, moving on, SICKMAN.
SICKMAN, this song kind of reminds me of Rob Zombie for some reason. It sounds like, what's that song he's got? Dragula, what the hell am I?
Yeah, and then
isn't it?
Burn with the witches and burn to the edge of my Dragula. Yeah, totally.
It's similar, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Apparently, Cantrell wrote this one too, but apparently Staley approached him and said, give me to sing the darkest, dirtiest, like ugliest song that you could possibly write. That's what I want, from you. And this was Cantrell's answer.
I think it's about drugs too, right?
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Interesting song. It's a pretty good song, SICKMAN. But yeah, this is quite like, this is more my expectation of grunge music with SICKMAN.
I don't like the song very much. Not a big fan.
No, but I mean, again, contextually.
Yeah.
Rooster.
Love.
Okay.
One of my favorite songs of this era. So good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. I dig
Just
that.
because it's like so much bigger than grunge, isn't it? It's obviously about the Vietnam War, but it's about Jerry Cantrell's dad. And that was his nickname, by the way, when he was a kid. Jerry Cantrell's dad, his nickname was Rooster. That's why he called the song Rooster. Yeah. But he said that Vietnam changed his dad and kind of shut him off. And he had a very difficult time relating to his dad. And this song was kind of the bridge back.
Yeah, like he didn't have a great relationship with his dad because of what the war did to him. Was that what he's saying here? Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like you're in the jungle, being hunted by the Viet Cong. Like it literally is like, got my pills against mosquito death. My buddy's breathing his dying breath. And I literally, when you hear the song, because of the atmospherics too, you're like right there.
Yeah, very well composed, very well. Like, it was great. Great journey they take you on with this one.
Junkhead is the first song on what would be side 2. And it was, Staley was saying, like, drugs are, this kind of is almost a glorification, right? Like, I'm on drugs and it's cool and, everything's fine. But then there's this descent.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Again, really simple, lyrics in, what's your drug of choice? Well, what have you got? That really stood out to me. I don't know why, but when I heard that, it's like, what's your drug of choice? And you're kind of like, oh, what's he going to pick? And you're like, well, what have you got? And you're kind of like, oh, yeah, wow. There's some issues there. Yeah. So, no, I just thought it was, it just really stood out to me. I just thought it was cool, the way that it was phrased, and not drugs, but I'm just saying that was the way that was phrased was interesting.
I distinctly remember listening to this when I was 23. I was just leaving school, and I remember I had the CD, so there was no sides. I didn't realize this was a story, but I remember being turned off by that and thinking, like, these guys are like really into it, and you can hear that, like, it's kind of eating them from the inside, like it's really grinding them down. And I specifically, I remember where I was, I lived in this house with like 6 guys, and I lived in the attic, and the address is 260 Edmond. People who, Laurentian people know this place because all the students live there. And it was in the summertime, but I remember sitting up there listening to this and going, fuck, these guys are like, this is really dark and really negative. And I actually didn't like it. I kind of, I loved Rooster and I liked Down in a Hole, but I didn't really like the album very much.
Okay. You didn't like the album or this song?
Not this part of it, because I remember hearing like, it started with Sick. I liked Rooster. SICKMAN I didn't like. Godsmack didn't like. Untitled is goofy. We'll get to that. And it was like this, like, oh, these guys are in so much pain. Like, it's just not a fun listen,
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
I just was never in that headspace. I could never, at that time, I was always into, like, let's go and have fun. Let's listen to Van Halen.
Right.
So I just couldn't really relate.
It's a different headspace. It's like Radiohead, man. I can't get into Radiohead. Right. I'm not there right now, or I don't know when I will be or if I ever will be, but it just, it's tough. And so I could see why this would be an album that if you're just not there for it.
Yeah.
You're not there for it.
Yeah, I couldn't relate to it. Yeah.
One other interesting they said about this album and the music they were writing, and is that they had people coming up to them that, they were like, they weren't trying to glorify the drugs. They weren't trying to say it's good to do drugs, but they would have people coming up to them like, saying, yeah, man, but like, and telling them that they were high, as if it was like a point of pride because of this album. So it's just something else that was interesting to know about, what they were trying to do with the record, that people were getting, maybe mixed messages or looking at it a little differently. It's tough.
I think about all that stuff. And I think about just the torment that Layne Staley made for himself, like, because I have read that too. Kids come out going, yeah, man, I'm wasted right now. And he's like, that's not the message at all. That's like, you completely, this is, and it's almost like a parable, right? He like literally drugged himself to death. He was on this downward spiral. Like, it's just such an awful story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, see, these grunge records, we get into like the really kind of dark areas, right?
Yeah, Jeremy, it comes really well. It comes, it's Jeremy. Ooh. But it's really, it's awesome to hear musically how it comes out. It's just how you take that pain, how you take that message, how you take what you're feeling, you put it into the music, because that's what it comes across, right? Van Halen is like, not all about partying, but it's a fun, happy vibe, and it comes through in the albums that we listen to, and same with Cinderella, and same with those bands, right? And that's what I know where we're getting out of here, but they still, this is more of that. You feel the pain, the anguish, the disturbance in the way that they translate that into the playing as well. Yep. That's great. Mm-hmm. Like Dirt.
So like Dirt was about, this is kind of a funny story. Staley, and what was her name? Do you remember this girl's name? He dated a girl who treated him very badly and broke up with him. He described her as a girl who virtually buried me, and that's what the song's called.
Cheryl Cole.
No, it's it's like, it starts with a D and it's an odd name. I can't remember.
Oh, Demris Parado or
Something like that, yeah.
Demis or Demris. Or, yeah. Demir.
Yeah, it ends with an I. Her first name.
Yeah. Demri. Yeah.
Demri or something like that. Anyway,
Weird.
so the story goes that the song is about, the kind of anguish that he was feeling as a result of the way that she treated him and kind of had her way with him. But then the album was called Dirt, and the album cover is that woman laying on the cracked kind of desert floor, and she looks as though she's dead. And so apparently this woman on the cover was selected by someone else, the photographer. And she looked exactly like Staley's girlfriend, like spitting image.
Right.
And she saw that and was like, are you trying to convey the fact that I'm dead and I'm in the dirt? Like, and he's like, it's not even you. Like, it's not like, it's not meant to, it was just a coincidence.
Yeah. Weird.
And so he kind of, had the last laugh. He kind of was snickering going, well, I'm like the song, it's basically you going down in the dirt instead of me.
Right.
Which is what you were trying to do to me initially. So that was the whole thing there.
Yeah. No, it's the model that was used on the cover of Spinal Tap's
Bitch School. That's right.
Bitch School album.
That's right.
I can't remember her name, but yep.
She was like Spanish or something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Bitch School.
Yeah, you're right. The photographer picked her. The photographer was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, cool stories. Cool behind-the-scenes stories with that. But very morbid. If you look at the cover, it looks like the person is deceased, right?
Yeah, totally. It's not a very good album cover.
No, it's terrible. Yeah, it's very grim. But
yeah.
It's
I mean, even production-wise, it looks like something I would have made in Photoshop in high school. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It's not the point. It's not the point, Brent. It's not the point.
All right. Godsmack.
Quite a few long songs too. Yeah, like I was thinking like Dirt. I'm just looking at it here. 5:16, 5:10, 6:14, 5:29, 5:38, 6:02. Like there's a lot of long tracks on this album. And I found that a little difficult to get through with some of these. It's just a little bit too brooding and long.
That's it, Alex. Woof. Brooding is like the perfect word, right? Especially when the songs are lengthy like that. It's like, okay, let's move forward here. Yeah. And not to diminish the veracity and the gravity of this, but like again, when I was 23, I just couldn't appreciate this.
Yep. Totally. It's 58 minutes long and 13 songs. They make up for it a little bit here with Godsmack, just under 4 minutes. Weird song. But again, when you think about it in the context of everything they sing about, it's kind of like the way Staley sings it. Is Staley singing this song? Does he sing everything? I just wasn't sure if him and Cantrell kind of maybe...
Cantrell's... I don't know what Cantrell sings, and he sounds like Staley. I don't know, but I think Staley... sings most of these. I don't know which ones Cantrell sings, but I think he does do a few.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's just interesting. It's all right. It's all right song. It's okay.
Yeah. See, this is the part of the album that I get lost.
Yeah. What, Iron Gland, you're not a big fan?
Do you know who's singing that?
Yeah. Well, who was a Slayer's singer?
Yeah. Tom Araya.
Yeah.
He's the bass player, the singer in Slayer. Like they hung out. It's so weird. Cool.
Yeah.
So I think the story goes with that they were starting to, they were scheduled to start recording Dirt the same day the Rodney King trials, or the verdict was released. And so there was the riots, obviously, in LA, and they were supposed to record this in LA. And Cantrell was in a convenience store buying beer or something, and some dude came in and started looting the place, and he's like, what's going on? Like, he didn't even know. And so the city was literally on fire, as you know, right? And so they took, for some reason, Tom Araya and went out to the Joshua Tree Desert and just hung out for like 6 days to kind of wait out the rioting and all the chaos. And they, became tight. And so when it came time to record the record, Araya was hanging around. And I think the story goes that Cantrell had this really annoying riff, and if you listen to the end of the song, you can hear it. It's this very atonal, like annoying, and the rest of the band hated it, and they said, please never play that again. He said, okay, I'll make you a deal. We'll record it once, and I'll never, ever play it again. But we have to do it with Tom. And Tom came in, and they kind of fashioned it after like Iron Man by Black Sabbath, right? But they called it Iron Gland. And so that's Tom rising, I am Iron Gland. And then at the end, I think Staley says red rum, which is a reference to The Shining.
I did hear that. Yeah, I did. I could hear that at the end of it for sure. That was weird. That's
Staley singing that, I think. But it's just like a goofy. It's 43 seconds long or something, and it's this throwaway thing. But apparently they play that as the intro music for some of their shows now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's pretty disturbing, but so they still play, eh? They still play?
Oh, yeah. Yep, they have a new singer. They're out there now, I think.
Right now? Outside outside?
Right now, if you look at the window, you might see Jerry Cantrell.
Is that what that noise was at the beginning?
Yeah, that was him on his bike.
Yeah. Hate to Feel.
Same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Same.
Like I said, this and Angry Chair. These are both Staley songs too, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
So he wrote both of these. Angry Chair did a little better. People really like that one. And it was a single, I think. It was like the third single.
Yeah.
From that record.
It's got a pretty good melody, actually, too. I do like Angry Chair. I was interested by the length of the album. I was kind of like... I was thinking while listening to this, believe it or not, I was thinking while listening to it, like, who decides? I don't know. Like, what this needs to be part of the album. This has got to be the song. Like, I don't know. It kind of came to me when I was listening to this. I'm like, why would you put Iron Gland, Hate to Feel, like, on here? I have
no idea.
It just felt weird. Yeah, you know, like when I find myself asking that, I'm kind of like, I know that the album at this point is kind of like it's too much. There's too much happening. It's too long. It's like not doing much for me at this point, right? I
fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Yep. I wouldn't have put it on.
That's how I felt with Hate to Feel. But I did like Angry Chair, and Wood. Wood is kind of like the pretty.
What a finish!
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
This is like I like this song more than I like Rooster, to be honest.
Oh yeah, interesting.
This is definitely one of my favorite grunge songs from this era. But like, I just love this song, irrespective of anything. Like, don't you? It's so great. Don't like it? Really?
It's. I don't know. It's all right. You know what it is? It might be a little too like mainstream grunge for me. You know, which is weird. No, I'm not a big fan. I know. I get that. I understand there's a significance to the song as well, but I just, yeah.
I didn't know it was about Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't know it was for him, but it kind of it's very representative of that. It just reminds me of that whole scene. It's almost like it just kind of recapitulates the whole thing. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really, really like it.
What was Pearl Jam's Garden? Was the song Garden?
Yep.
Garden. What was it? What's the song called? Garden of.
Just called Garden.
Just called Garden. Just called Garden.
Yep.
Well, I'd mentioned
walk with my shadow flag and through your garden of stone. Right?
Well, I felt like it would be the end credits to any '90s movie, and like specifically, I was thinking of like Matt Dillon. I never said anything in this, and then I would go on to find out that this song was used in a Matt Dillon movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay,
Simple.
so not far off.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, different album, but yeah, I just thought that was. I don't know if it was the credit music, but it was used in that movie. I gotta watch that movie. I've never seen it. I never heard about it until now. So
the soundtrack's way better than the movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, Camera Crew's great, man. Almost Famous. Come on.
Maybe I should watch it again. I don't know. I just remember watching it and thinking like it's just kind of meh.
Right.
But I really
next Thursday
love
Night
the
Record
single
Club,
soundtrack. Like Breath is on there, State of Love and Trust, Pearl Jam. And that's when Pearl Jam was cresting. Like everybody was like clamoring for the next album. It was very exciting.
They were all in that movie. It was like Chris Cornell was in that movie, Eddie Vedder was in that movie, Staley was in that movie. They all had their own little cameos, I guess.
Yep. So, what's the verdict, Judge? Judge Huard?
4. It's 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
It's 4 out of 5.
Okay, that's fair. Inaccurate.
I can't go down to 3. It's not a 3. It's a 4. Yeah.
No, it's definitely not a 3.
It's definitely not a 3.
Okay, I like that.
That's cool. Like I said, it's great to listen to these songs, these bands, and hear the difference in sounds they're able to contribute to, you know. And I know that people are like, oh, it's actually sludge rock or something. I'm like, shut up, right? Like, no, like this all fits to me under that genre of grunge. There's grunge, there's rock, there's hip hop, there's metal, classical country. Like, I don't need to get into the sludge. You know,
People will always create those kind of subgenres, right? Like doom
it's
metal.
like for what? Right.
I know.
Like,
I know.
Whatever.
The thing I like about Alice in Chains is that, you know, when you think about Facelift, a lot of people thought that was a metal record just because of Man in the Box. But they because of that point we made earlier about the melodies and the great songwriting, they kind of almost elude labels, you know? Like, I don't know, you can't really say that about Pearl Jam, but I don't know, Alice in Chains, of all these bands, was that one that could have been kind of positioned anywhere, just because of, and you'll get this when you listen to Jar of Flies. They write like really nice songs. They're not like Nirvana, you knew was like a grunge band, you know? They were in that box, I hate to say. But Alice in Chains, you couldn't really put them in that box.
Yeah, well, maybe that idea of them being something different or starting out as with a different direction and then finding the direction afterwards help like play into that expansion of, I don't know, sound and formula.
Could be. So,
cool.
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? Okay, so we're gonna do an album called.
Let's do. I want to do two more. I want to do two more grunge, and I know there's bands like Screaming Trees and Mudhoney and stuff like that.
Of course, the classics.
Yeah. Well,
sorry,
they're kind of like 1A bands, like right underneath.
Okay.
And people probably throw rocks at me for that, but let's do Bad Motorfinger by Soundgarden.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say Susie and the Banshees. Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's do that.
Bad Motorfinger by Soundgarden.
I think that's the one that we should look at for sure. Rusty Cage is on that. Jesus Christ Pose is on that. If you know those songs. No,
don't.
You will, and you're going to like them, I think. But again, like Dirt, it wasn't their first record. It wasn't their kind of, most recent record. It was the one that kind of captured the ethos of the band best, in my opinion, for the purposes of what we're doing here, right? Evaluating these records against kind of not just grunge, but everything, the whole movement that we've gone through the last 15 episodes or so.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
The journey continues.
Kurt Cobain, dead. Layne Staley, dead. Chris Cornell, dead. Eddie Vedder is the only guy who's out of these four
You forgot
bands.
one. Scott Weiland, dead.
Well, that's STP, right? So we just haven't done them yet. We haven't done them or not.
STP, we're going to look at them too.
Okay.
We'll look at Core or Purple. But that's kind of a very jarring statistic, isn't it? So like the top five, the big five bands of the grunge era, one guy is left standing. I wonder if Eddie Vedder himself thinks about that and what he thinks of it.
Yeah.
He has to.
If all I have are sound effects.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
There's no answer to that question.
Well then, we'll see you next week for a little Soundgarden. Bad Motor Finger. Sounds funny.
Don't get addicted to heroin before we meet again.
You got it. Yes, sir.
And don't let that dog bite you. Call the dog catcher and make sure that dog is brought into custody. Dog custody.
If I come back without an arm, it's because I got rabies and they had to amputate. Okay? All right?
You're going to be foaming at the mouth on the next show.
How do I get Bad Motor Finger into this? All right, here we go. Okay.
That's going to be tough, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be really tough for you.
I got a week to think about it. About it.
Off you go.
Off I go to think about. I'm not even going to listen to the album. I'm just going to spend a whole week thinking about how to get that into the opening part of the show.